Have you ever wondered, what if the people closest to you are the ones silently holding you back? Not your enemies, not strangers, but your own family. Niccolò Machiavelli believed power doesn't collapse from outside attacks. It decays from within your inner circle. So, here's the question you need to ask yourself right now. Who in your family truly supports your growth, and who benefits from your weakness? Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. 1. The jealous sibling. They don't hate you, not openly. In fact, if someone asked them about you, they would probably smile and say, "Yeah, we're close." But here's the truth most people never realize. Jealousy inside a family doesn't look like hatred. It looks like subtle competition disguised as love. A jealous sibling doesn't attack you directly. They don't need to. They study you. They compare themselves to you. And slowly, quietly, they begin to resent the very things that make you you. Your confidence, your achievements, your attention, your growth. And the most dangerous part, they feel entitled to be where you are. So every time you rise, it feels like you're taking something from them. Now ask yourself this. Have you ever shared good news, and instead of pure excitement, you felt a strange, uncomfortable energy from them? A forced smile, a delayed reaction, a subtle change in tone. That's not your imagination. That's suppressed envy. Niccolò Machiavelli understood something most people ignore. The greatest threats are not the ones who openly oppose you, but the ones who feel inferior to you. Because inferiority breeds comparison, and comparison breeds quiet hostility. A jealous sibling won't always try to destroy you in obvious ways. Instead, they operate in subtle patterns. They downplay your success. It's not that big of a deal. They question your decisions. Are you sure this is the right move? They remind you of your past mistakes, just when you start to feel confident. And sometimes, they disguise criticism as concern. I'm just saying this for your own good. But it's not for your good. It's for their comfort. Because your growth forces them to confront their own stagnation. And instead of rising with you, they try to pull you back down to where they feel safe. Here's where it becomes dangerous. You trust them. You open up. You share your plans, your weaknesses, your next moves. And without realizing it, you're giving them the exact tools they need to slow you down. Not always intentionally, but consistently. So let me ask you something important. What if the person you trust with your dreams secretly hopes they don't come true? That question alone should change how you move. This doesn't mean you hate them. This doesn't mean you cut them off immediately. It means you become aware. You stop oversharing. You stop seeking validation. You observe more than you speak. Because power, as Machiavelli believed, is not about eliminating everyone around you. It's about understanding their nature. And once you understand a jealous sibling, you stop expecting pure support. You stop being emotionally dependent on their approval. You become strategic, calm, controlled. Because the moment you stop reacting and start observing, you take back control of the dynamic. And here's the final question you need to sit with. If they weren't your sibling, would you still trust them the same way? Think about that. Because the answer to that question might reveal more than you're ready to accept. 2. The overprotective parent. They love you. There's no doubt about that. They sacrificed for you, protected you, guided you when you were lost. And because of that, you trust them. You listen to them. You believe they always know what's best. But here's the uncomfortable truth most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Not all protection is meant to make you stronger. Some of it is meant to keep you small. An overprotective parent doesn't control you through force. They control you through fear. Fear of failure, fear of risk, fear of the unknown. They don't say, "Don't grow." They say things like, "Be careful, play it safe. Don't take unnecessary risks. Think about what could go wrong." And slowly, over time, you start seeing the world the way they do. Not as a place of opportunity, but as a place full of danger. Now ask yourself this: how many opportunities have you hesitated on? Not because you weren't capable, but because you were afraid of disappointing them. That hesitation, that second guessing, that's not your instinct. That's conditioning. Niccolò Machiavelli understood something powerful. Control doesn't always come from authority. Sometimes it comes from emotional dependency. And an overprotective parent, without even realizing it, can make you dependent on their approval. At first, it feels like guidance. You go to them for advice. You seek their validation before making decisions. But over time, it becomes a habit. Then it becomes a need. And eventually, it becomes a limitation. Because every time you try to step outside your comfort zone, their voice echoes in your mind. What if it goes wrong? What if you fail? What if you regret it? And just like that, you stop. Not because you can't move forward, but because you've been taught to fear moving forward. Here's where it becomes dangerous. An overprotective parent doesn't see themselves as limiting you. In their mind, they're saving you. They believe they're protecting you from pain, failure, and disappointment. But what they don't realize is this: the same protection that keeps you safe also keeps you stuck. Growth requires risk. Power requires discomfort. And independence requires you to make decisions without constantly looking for permission. But if every major step in your life is filtered through their approval, are you really living your life? Or are you living a version of it that feels safe to them? Let me ask you something deeper. If fear wasn't planted in your mind, would you still be making the same choices today? Think about that carefully, because most people confuse caution with wisdom. But they're not the same. Caution keeps you from danger, but too much caution keeps you from opportunity. An overprotective parent often projects their own fears onto you. The risks they never took. The failures they never recovered from. The life they were too afraid to live. And without realizing it, they pass that fear down to you, not as trauma, but as advice. And because it comes from love, you don't question it. You accept it. But here's where your awareness begins. You start noticing patterns. Every time you want to take a bold step, you feel resistance. Every time you try to grow, you hear doubt. Not your doubt, theirs. So the real shift isn't about rebelling. It's not about disrespect. It's about detaching emotionally from their fear while still respecting their intention. You can love them and still choose differently. You can respect them and still take risks. You can listen to them without obeying everything they say. Because power comes from thinking independently. And once you start doing that, something changes. You stop asking for permission. You start making decisions. You take responsibility for your outcomes, good or bad, and that's when you truly begin to grow. But let me leave you with one final question. Are you living a life you chose, or a life that was chosen for you out of fear? Because once you answer that honestly, you'll realize something most people never do. Freedom isn't given to you. It's something you take the moment you stop letting fear decide your path. 3. The manipulative relative. They don't look dangerous. They don't act like an enemy. In fact, they often appear the most caring, the most involved, the most emotionally invested in your life. They check on you. They give advice. They remind you how much family matters. And that's exactly what makes them so difficult to detect. Because manipulation at its highest level doesn't feel like control. It feels like care. This isn't the loud, aggressive type of control. This is subtle, calculated, emotional. A manipulative relative doesn't force you to do things. They make you feel like you should. Now ask yourself this: have you ever agreed to something, not because you wanted to, but because saying no made you feel guilty? That's where it begins. Not with pressure, but with guilt. Niccolò Machiavelli understood a brutal truth about human nature. The easiest way to control someone is to control their emotions. And guilt is one of the most powerful emotional weapons there is. A manipulative relative knows exactly how to use it. They remind you of everything they've done for you. After all I've done, I was always there for you. Family should never turn their back. They don't say it directly. They imply it. And that implication becomes pressure. Over time, you start feeling responsible for their emotions. If they're upset, you feel like it's your fault. If they're disappointed, you feel like you failed them. If they're distant, you feel the need to fix it. And without realizing it, you start living your life to keep them comfortable. But here's the hidden pattern most people never see. They don't want your happiness. They want your compliance. Because a truly happy, independent person is much harder to control. A manipulative relative thrives on emotional access. They ask personal questions. They dig into your plans. They want to know your next move, not always to help, but to position themselves. They might say, "I'm just looking out for you. I don't want you to make a mistake. I know what's best." But pay attention to the outcome. Do you feel empowered after talking to them? Or do you feel confused, doubtful, emotionally drained? That feeling is your signal. Because manipulation doesn't always leave visible damage. It leaves internal conflict. Let me ask you something deeper. Why is it that after certain conversations with them, you start questioning decisions you were once confident about? That's not coincidence. That's influence. They plant seeds of doubt. Small ones, subtle ones. Just enough to make you hesitate. Just enough to make you reconsider. And in that hesitation, they gain control. Here's where it becomes even more dangerous. They often hide behind the idea of family loyalty. They make you feel like setting boundaries is betrayal. Like saying no is disrespect. Like choosing yourself is selfish. And because you don't want to be seen as the bad person, you give in again and again and again, until one day you realize you've built a life that doesn't even feel like yours. So let me ask you this. If a stranger treated you the same way, would you still tolerate it? Or would you recognize it as manipulation immediately? That's the illusion. We excuse behavior from family. That we would never accept from anyone else. But awareness changes everything. You don't need to confront them aggressively. You don't need to create conflict. You simply need to see clearly. You start setting quiet boundaries. You stop over-explaining your decisions. You limit how much personal information you share. And most importantly, you stop letting guilt make your choices. Because once you remove guilt from the equation, their influence weakens. Power, as Machiavelli understood, isn't about dominating others. It's about not being controlled. And the moment you stop reacting emotionally, the moment you stop feeling responsible for their expectations, you take back control of your life. But here's the final question you need to confront. Are you making decisions out of genuine desire or out of fear of disappointing them? Because if it's the second one, then it's not your life you're living, it's theirs. And the longer you stay in that cycle, the harder it becomes to break free. But the moment you recognize the pattern, the moment you choose clarity over guilt, everything changes, silently, powerfully, permanently. For the two-faced supporter, they clap for you, they praise you, they call you talented, strong, different. In front of you, they look like your biggest supporter. But behind your back, they tell a completely different story. This is the most dangerous type of person in your family, not because they openly oppose you, but because they blend loyalty with betrayal so perfectly, you never see it coming. A two-faced supporter doesn't criticize you directly. They don't challenge you. They don't confront you. Instead, they observe, they listen, they collect. Now ask yourself this: have you ever shared something personal and later found out others somehow knew about it? A detail you never made public, a weakness you only told one person. That's not coincidence. That's leakage. Niccolò Machiavelli once revealed a harsh truth. People reveal their true intentions, not by what they say to you, but by what they say about you when you're not there. And a two-faced supporter masters this duality. In your presence, they build you up. You're going to succeed. I believe in you. You're different from everyone else. But in your absence, they plant doubt in others. I don't think he's ready. He's changing too much. Let's see how long this lasts. Not loud enough to be exposed, but subtle enough to shape perception. Because here's what most people don't understand. Reputation is power. And a two-faced supporter doesn't attack your success directly. They attack how others see your success. They position themselves as neutral, balanced, concerned. So when they speak, people listen. And slowly, without you even knowing, your image starts to shift. Let me ask you something deeper. What's more dangerous, someone who openly hates you, or someone who secretly influences how others perceive you? The answer is obvious, but most people still ignore it, because betrayal from a stranger is expected. But betrayal wrapped in familiarity feels impossible. A two-faced supporter often has one key advantage: access. They're close enough to you to know your plans, your weaknesses, your timing. They know when you're about to make a move. They know where you're vulnerable. And they use that information not to destroy you instantly, but to control the narrative around you. They don't need to lie. They just need to frame the truth in a way that benefits them. And here's the part most people never question: why do they do it? Not always out of hatred, not always out of jealousy. Sometimes it's about positioning. By keeping you slightly misunderstood, they keep themselves relevant, trusted, needed. Because if you rise too clearly, too powerfully, you no longer need them. So they maintain a balance. Support you enough to stay close, but undermine you enough to stay in control. That's the game. Now think carefully. Have you ever felt like your progress is real, but somehow people around you don't fully recognize it? Like something is off? Like your effort isn't translating into the respect it should? That invisible resistance often comes from someone you trust. But here's where awareness changes everything. You don't accuse. You don't react emotionally. You observe patterns. Who knows too much about your personal life? Who always seems informed about things you never announced? Who praises you publicly, but your reputation still feels unstable? Patterns reveal truth, not words. So what do? You become strategic with your openness. You stop sharing everything. You separate your public wins from your private plans. You give people less material to work with. Because the less they know, the less they can distort. Power isn't just about what you do. It's about what others believe about what you do. And once you understand that, you stop being careless with information. Niccolò Machiavelli believed that maintaining power requires controlling perception. And the moment you let the wrong person influence that perception, you lose control without even realizing it. So here's the final question you need to confront. If everything they say about you behind your back was revealed today, would it match what they say to your face? Sit with that, because the answer might completely change how you trust them. And once you see through a two-faced supporter, you don't need revenge, you don't need confrontation, you just need distance, awareness, and control. Because the most powerful move is not exposing them, it's removing their access to your reality. The truth about trust and power, by now you've seen the pattern. It's not always strangers who hold you back. It's not always enemies who try to weaken you. Sometimes it's the people closest to you, your sibling, your parent, your relatives, even the ones who smile, support, and stand beside you. But here's the truth most people are not ready to accept. Not everyone in your family wants to see you grow beyond them. Not because they hate you, but because your growth challenges their comfort, their identity, and their place in your life. Niccolò Machiavelli understood something that still applies today. Power is not just about what you do, it's about who you allow to influence you. So this is not about cutting people off blindly. It's not about becoming cold or emotionless. It's about becoming aware. You start noticing energy, not just words. You observe patterns, not promises. You trust actions, not appearances. Let me ask you one final question. If you removed the label of family, would you still trust these people the same way? That question changes everything, because loyalty should not be blind. Trust should not be automatic, and love should not cost you your growth. From this point forward, move differently. Speak less about your plans. Protect your vision. Control your emotions. And most importantly, choose who gets access to your mind, your energy, and your future. Because in the end, your life will not be shaped by your intentions alone. It will be shaped by the people you allow close enough to influence them. And once you truly understand that, you don't just become careful, you become powerful.